Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 12 of the Bell Falls Search Focus on Talent video series. This is the digital marketing edition. Today's guest is a person I met through a nonprofit organization that I've got involved with over the last few years. We'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end of the conversation, but he and his wife started a nonprofit called the Footpath Foundation. I'm a fond advocate of it. Brian Macias is with us today. He's the president of Embrace Insurance. Brian, thank you for your time and for being here today.
Hey, Ron, thanks for having me. And by the way, thank you for all of your support of the Footpath Foundation. You know, I think it's nice that you're crediting me as a co-founder of it, but really it's Mary and Sarah Tabling, and the two of them have just done a tremendous job. And, you know, a mutual friend of ours, Jason, who's Sarah's husband, you know, obviously we dove right in and we want to be helpful in any way that we possibly can, but those ladies are just killing it. You know, they're doing such a tremendous job with the foundation. They're serving over 500 kids every single year, you know, through outdoor and summer camp and equestrian programs, and just such a cool thing, like helping mostly at-risk youth, inner city, mostly Cleveland, Lorain County, kids who would never have these opportunities, getting them in an environment where they can develop like leadership, social emotional skills in a way that it doesn't feel contrived, right? They don't know that's what they're doing. Yeah. They're just experiencing life as kids. And, you know, long story short, thank you. Thank you for your support. We couldn't do it without you.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's a great organization, and no pun intended, but you're right. It does. You guys have built it in such a natural way for the students involved, or the kids involved. It's just been I think a great opportunity for Cleveland, for sure.
Well, it's a true entrepreneurial tale. I mean, it literally started in our family room, sitting around saying, how do we make an impact in our community? How do we do something we're passionate about and actually help other human beings? And we went down all kinds of different paths. And that is how the Footpath Foundation came to be. I mean, it really started with the four of us brainstorming, and, you know, it's still small today. I think they're working off of a budget of about $250,000 a year. But, you know, they're getting there. And that's how all good stories start. So again, thank you for bringing it up. I'm really
sure.
proud of the work that the organization has done. And again, we can't do it without you. So thank you.
No worries. My pleasure. We'll share a link and some access to your site too as well.
Thank you.
So, you know, can you build upon my brief presentation or my brief introduction of yourself and tell everybody, you know, what your role is today, and talk about Embrace Pet Insurance and kind of the niche you guys fill in the market?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you. So as you mentioned, I'm Brian Macias. I'm the president of Embrace Pet Insurance. Embrace is a top 5 pet insurer. We're located here in Cleveland, Ohio. We've got about 250-ish team members right now, of which about 60 of them are fully remote, you know, due to, you know, COVID and quarantine. And so, you know, we're really running a hybrid workforce from that perspective. The company is just, Ron, it's wonderful. I mean, I've been in financial services my entire career, starting at Quicken Loans and, you know, being with National General and now with Embrace. And I've never been involved with a more fulfilling product and industry than what we do at Embrace. So we provide accident and illness insurance to pet owners for their pets. We also have a wellness product that will cover everything that doesn't fall into that accident and illness bucket. And Embrace has been around for about 15 years. Actually, not about 15 years. In October, it will be the 15-year anniversary of Embrace Pet Insurance. And, you know, really tremendous founders who started Embrace, Laura Bennett being one of them, who still remains a very close friend to the organization, just a really smart, fantastic person. And she did a great job, you know, just with the passion she had for pets, the pet community, for team members, just creating this great organization, smart products, great culture, making it really easy for me to come in, you know, almost 2 years ago and take the reins. You know, there wasn't a lot to be rebuilt. It was just about empowering the folks around me and getting them going. And, you know, in that time, we've had our best year in 2020. We continue to have a wonderful year in 2021. And it's really a credit to the team. And I think it's just a credit to the growing industry. You know, listen, at the end of the day, you can appreciate this. A high tide carries all ships, and a tidal wave crushes them all. And so in our industry, we're really fortunate to be experiencing a high tide. But the reason for that is because the product is so intuitive. It's so good for consumers. It's so good for veterinarians. and clearly it's good for the pets. So again, bringing that full circle, it's just what makes it so fulfilling. We're doing good work, and I like that a lot. So
No,
that's it in a nutshell.
Gotcha. I'm going to ask some more questions about the product and the culture you guys have built there. Before we get to that point, can you talk a little bit about your career progression? Where did you start, and how did you get to becoming president of a company as successful as Embrace?
Yeah, well, man, that was about 20 years. It feels weird to say that, that I've been doing this for 20 years now. I actually started in the call center at Quicken Loans as a mortgage banker, taking inbound calls, making outbound calls, perfecting my client interaction. When I started at Quicken, I don't even know that I knew how to spell the word mortgage. It had a T and two G's in it. I had to learn that. But I was so blessed to just be surrounded by a lot of really positive, visionary, intuitive people. And I really credit that, Ron, with everything that I'm doing today. I was so fortunate to find that opportunity and to realize that all I needed to do was just get my foot in the door there. I was really fortunate enough to meet Dan Gilbert. So this is how this all went down. Mary and I were camp counselors at a place called Camp Tanuga. And Dan's kids went to Camp Tanuga, and every year there'd be something called family camp. And Dan would come up with his kids. And so I had just graduated from the University of Michigan. Mary still had one more year there. And Dan says to me, this is the second summer I see him there. I really didn't know who he was. And he wasn't who he is today at that time.
Gotcha.
Right? I mean, this is 2000, 2001. And he says, I thought you graduated from the University of Michigan. What are you, your camp counselor? And I was like, Dan, I just don't know what I want to do. All I know is that when you get out of college, you have like some qualitative skills, you have some quantitative skills. I'm pretty good with Excel. And I'm curious and I'm willing to learn and do whatever someone tells me. So I need to find the right opportunity for me to fit in with that mindset, right? He said, listen, if you're serious, call me on Monday and we'll talk about an opportunity. And at that time, Quicken Loans was just this little building on Victor Parkway off of I-275 in Livonia, Michigan.
Wow.
And again, I didn't even really know what they did or because they aren't who they are today, right? Back then, it was 20 years ago. So anyways, that's how it all started. So I got my foot in the door that way. And then I think from there at Quicken, it was just really about endearing myself to people who I wanted to model. Those people included Richard Mandel, who was just so stoic, so intelligent, so great at empowering others and listening, just such a great dude. He ran all of the branches that were previously called Rock Financial. So it was like the brick and mortar side of Quicken Loans. There was Patrick McGinnis, who was the president, and he came from that brick and mortar side. He was just amazing with relationships. You'll never meet a more relatable, driven kind of guy that you're comfortable with. And I tried to glean that from him and really get to know Patrick, and that was really helpful for me. The interactions that I had with Dan, his visionary style of driving the isms and the culture there, which really are everything, and really recognizing some really visionary key inflection points that he made along the way, right? Of saying there's this infamous email that, he basically told everybody. It was like 1997, I think, is when this email went out. I think you could find it if you searched it. It said, stop what you're doing. This internet thing is for real. We're going to figure out how to use it. We're going to figure out how, eventually people will be able to go online. They'll apply for a loan. They'll get approved for that loan, and the loan will get funded without them ever talking to a human being. Now, Rocket Mortgage is in existence. It only took, 20 plus years for that vision to come to full fruition. But he saw that, and so he really drove the vision of the company and the isms and the culture. Jay Farner. Listen, Jay isn't a guy that I spent a ton of time with. He's the current CEO now. Jay just has such a stoic, but still magician type positivity and charisma about him that is just pure and good. And just watching him do what he did was something that I could glean. And so, long story short, I'm getting very deep into the Quicken Loans piece. Ron, you can cut me off at any time. Nope. But I think it was there and just recognizing all these pieces that I wanted to be able to absorb into my game as a young person, and just keep it simple, right? Just look at these people who are having immense success and who are doing it in such a good and fun and inclusive kind of way with high energy. And I want to be like these guys. And I want to be like all of them. not just like one of them, but I want
Mhm.
to take the best pieces. Now, don't get me wrong. Everybody has things that you don't want to pick up from them too, as those guys do, and as I do as well. But as I tell people, you got to ignore those pieces, pull the
Yep.
pieces you like, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so I did that. I think the other piece to that, and you and I had talked about this previously, is just now career catapults. So at Quicken, it enabled me to gain some sponsors, to build relationships with people who weren't my direct leaders, whether it be Dan or Patrick or Bill Emerson or Jay or Richard, especially Richard, who was so good to me. You find these people who are very senior to you. You build trust with them. You build a relationship with them. You be reliable, right? I think that's the biggest piece. Be reliable. And then they become sponsors. They bring you into other opportunities that then become career catapults. And so I started as a mortgage banker. I talked to Patrick. Patrick said, "Hey, listen, we want to get bigger. We want to grow. We got to have a training team. Would you want to do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll figure that out." Right? I've never been a trainer. I didn't know. I'm a fairly charismatic guy. I'm good at communication. I'll learn it. I'll figure it out. And so I jumped in and started out, doing some sales coaching, both in the branches and in the website of the House of Quicken Loans, and eventually grew it into a coaching team that included a bunch of coaches and included QA people who were listening to and scoring calls. That grew into running all of banker training at some point. Then Patrick, again, a great sponsor for me, came back and said, "Hey, we want to really grow this affinity side of our business. We've got this business at the time, it was called HRBP, Human Resources Benefits Program, right? And basically it was just going out and building affinity relationships with Fortune 500 companies and getting them to advertise our loans and our process and our service as a perk to their people with a discount. And so I was like, yeah, I want that. I'll figure that out. I'll jump in and do that, right? And so it really is kind of like that trajectory of, going from frontline call center guy to like jumping in and doing some coaching, to running a team of coaches as a team leader now, to running a team of coaches and QA people, to then heading up all of training as a VP, and then making a somewhat lateral move, over to the VP of Affinity, or HRBP as we called it at the time, which became Mortgage Insiders. And so that really, Ron, is like the most formative piece of my journey and what I continue to use to this day. From there, I left Quicken and said, I want to be like Dan. I want to be entrepreneurial. I like this, this working in the business, but I want to spread my wings and try to build something. And so I left Quicken in 2007 to do that. I started my own consulting company. I quickly learned that consulting is not scalable. It's really almost like a doctor or attorney. You're a hourly, you're glamorous hourly person, right? It's really what it is. But if you're not working, you're not making money. And I found that the clients that I worked with only wanted to work with me. They didn't want to work with somebody I brought into the business or put in there. And so it was hard to scale that, but I learned a ton in doing it. I had great clients, and a lot of them tied to Dan Gilbert's portfolio of companies. So ePrize, some work with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I ended up taking a job full-time with one of my clients called My Insurance Expert. So at that point, I came in as basically the head of marketing and sales, and we grew the business tremendously. We were doing individual health insurance. We grew to be in the top 3 of all distributors of individual health insurance, and a top performer for Aetna and Humana and Cigna and others. And we're cranking. We went from doing 2,000 policies a year to doing 6,000 a month. And we were doing it, and it was great. And there were reward trips, and there were bonuses, and it was wonderful. And then ACA came down the pike. So this is when it was passed: Obamacare, ACA, PPACA. This is a really interesting thing, too. This is a great learning experience. Is that I fully believe in the ACA, and I believe in it. I think it was the right thing to do. Now, being on the receiving end of having basically your business get tanked by it, because what happened was at that point is that the commissions got cut in half on the policies that we were selling, but the marketing cost, stayed the same. So basically, there was no margin left in the business. This is where we learned to pivot. So we said, hey, what do we have? What are our strengths? What are our resources? And so that pivot was, well, we've got a great CRM, we have great salespeople, we have solid operations, we've got a good marketing operation, good partners. Could we sell life insurance? Is it close enough? And so we said, well, let's give it a shot. And you know what? We learned some things. So one is we learned we were very good at the selling and marketing of life insurance. What we learned on the back end was that the processing of that policy in a direct to consumer fashion, very difficult to get people to go get that, the medical exam that's required. And so the process kind of really had a big hiccup there. We ran out of cash in 2011 and enter Dan Gilbert again. So at that time, Rockbridge, and Camelot Ventures, that was part of their portfolio. They invested in us a few $1 million, and we had burned it all by 2012 and shut the doors. So you can imagine,
I was hoping for a much better ending to the story there.
No, that's how it goes,
right,
man.
Right.
And there, what you learn is there's most stories end that way in businesses.
They do. Mm-hmm.
And so the question that's always asked, is like, well, what did you learn? And what we learned was we didn't know what we didn't know in terms of being able to process that business. And for me personally, I learned that $5 million wasn't close to enough money to really build that model out. We did not have a good enough grasp on what it really took to get the job done from a processing perspective. And those were two lessons I'll always take with me. Listen, I've been rambling on, but the last piece I'll add is that, we closed the doors, I think it was in July, and I spent that entire next month just writing letters of recommendation, going to interviews with people, so part of the thing is they opened the door at Quicken Loans and had open interview days because we were part of the family of companies, but I made sure to be there so that I could, introduce people to the recruiters. And, I think it was valuable time spent and a valuable lesson for me, and just personal responsibility. I mean, I took it hard, Ron. It's tough, when you feel like, I failed these people, but in the long run, they all landed on their feet, including me, in better places where they're supposed to be. And so that was a good lesson to learn through that whole experience.
Well, and all of that, based upon the way you handle it, some of them probably are in your life today, in your current situation too, or kind of found that, I don't want to say followed you to the next thing, but probably stayed in touch and maybe you're working together today too.
Both are true. Yeah. And I think, listen, for me, I don't think that leadership is a title. I think that it's a responsibility that you assume, and it's something you can do without title as well. And so it's just always been really important to me to stay in touch with all of my team members, whether current or past or whatever, and whatever I can do to help them or connect a dot or make an introduction, and or if the fit is right, bring them with me, and that's happened too, all the way through to Embrace, where I'm at right now.
Yep. It's always great to be that career catapult for other people too, to use your term, right? I mean, it worked for you. Now the responsibility I think we all have is to do the same for others, and help them through that. I know we're a little tight on time. I want to talk about the talent pieces of this conversation. Can I ask though, I see you on social media, I see you on LinkedIn. I think you do a very great job at promoting not only your company, but the culture that you have and the people. And it's just, I want to come work at Embrace. It just looks like a fun place to be. And you can see the smile in all your team members' faces when they're in the pictures that you take. I love it. I think you're a model that lots of people should follow. Can you tell me a little bit, just since we're, in the thick of this with everyone kind of working through, how are you guys handling, the working situation with the pandemic?
Yeah, well, thank you. It was really kind of you to say that. You know what? We'd love to have you. So maybe we should talk more about that.
All right.
Yeah, well, I think the question that you're asking is a good one because you're tying in culture to how we handled the pandemic. And that's exactly how we handled it, right? I think that culture is often this elusive, non-fungible term that people use. And cultures and companies form whether you're overtly trying to create a certain culture or if you're just ignoring it, right? And most of the time, if you're ignoring it, it probably isn't going to be something that you like.
Yep.
Human beings in general, we're very evolved. We have a frontal lobe, but we still have this reptilian brain too that acts on fear and paranoia. And that's what keeps us alive and keeps us safe. And I think that, in a hands-off environment where you don't have overt core values, when you don't do everything, recruit, hire, onboard, recognize, promote through those core values. If those core values aren't defined and all over the place in everything that you do, a culture will still form, but it will often be, as human nature dictates, a culture of fear and paranoia, right? And that's, people are just naturally fearful of the company, of the man, of these things. At Embrace, we've just done such a tremendous job, and I can't even take credit for it, in terms of having our very overt core values and making them a part of everything we do. And more importantly, as I always say to folks, they're not what we do. These aren't things that we do. This is who we are. And so when you have these core values and you empower people with them and you hold people accountable to them, you don't have to have a lot of policies and procedures and written things like maybe the big three of the past would have, right? Like how to wear your tie, where your belt buckle is supposed to be, all these things. Like, human beings are smart, they care, they work hard, they want to be part of something bigger than themselves. And so I think the key is to give them that opportunity. So long story short, what culture is not, it's not the ping pong table that we have, although we do have one, people barely use it. It's not the keg that we have in the office. We do have that, and it's always local brews. Right now we've got Fatheads in there, we've got Bumbleberry, and we've got Sunshine Daydream. It's not even that you can bring your dogs to work, right? Which we do. We have cool neighborhoods. You bring your dog to work, all these things. But to your point, all those things are moot in a world where everyone goes home and works from home. And so it just really reinforced that it was never about any of those things. It was about plugging people in who are customer fixated, who seek innovation, who are passionate, who have a high level of personal responsibility, who believe in giving back to the community and the environment. And those things can be done regardless of where everyone's sitting. And when you continue to empower people to live those things and be those things and reward people for those things, it becomes really fulfilling for everybody.